c5. So white usually goes with the move knight f3, but in this tutorial I'll stick to the system that works with the move knight to c3. So let's go with knight to c3, which is called the closed Sicilian. So black usually plays this move, knight to c6. It's a very common move that you encounter if you play against the Sicilian in the e4 lines. So we shall continue with the move knight g to e2. This is called the chameleon system. We are not playing our knight to f3, which is a very standard system, which most people play, but we shall go with our knight to e2, which is a beautiful system here. And we are going to look at all the possibilities, the most common possibilities that happen in such systems. So g6 is the most common system here, and most people play the move g6. So whenever they play the move g6, feel free to continue with the move d4. d4 is the pretty standard system that you always get used to, and every time please feel free to break the center when you can with the move d4. So they will take the pawn, and that's okay. You always use the knight. Please don't use the queen. The queen will be captured. And whenever they attack the knight, please feel free to with the move bishop to e3. So this is a pretty standard system here. And whenever they bring out the knight, please put your bishop, get ready to castle. And by move 7, you're pretty having a decent opening, and I will stop there. The game can continue with many other interesting moves here, whatever you want to play, as long as it's solid and right. The game can continue pretty well. So let's move on to another system here, which is the other second move, which is commonly played, which is the move. This is our system. We play out our knight to e2. So what if they play their knight to cf6? So this is another beautiful system here. We shall continue, always break the center with our pawn to d4. A beautiful system here. Whenever they take that pawn, please feel free to take with the knight. They may chase away your knight, just jump around with your knight, ready to stick it to the center. And they may refuse that knight getting there. The game can continue pretty well. They can chase away your knight. This game arose in a game between Carlsen, Nepal in white, Carlsen in black. It ended in a draw, a game in 2020, the Irving's Masters, and it was a pretty beautiful game out there. So watch out for the fork. Your knight has to leave and maximize that pin. Okay, that's a pretty decent game there. So let's continue with another line. Another common move, which is d6. D6 is another beautiful move, which happens in such positions. So the game continues back with knight g to e2, and this is a beautiful setup here. And what happens when they play d6? We always break the center with our pawn to d4. What happens here? You always take that pawn with your knight. They may close out whenever they close out this bishop. We are always free to strike the center. If they push that pawn, you can always drop into that. But the game can continue pretty well with this beautiful setup here, and this will be a beautiful game that you can enjoy in this system. So that is the line that can arise with the d6 system. What if they play e6? So we shall continue with our system. Already break the center. I'll continue it again and again. Again and again, always break the center. So they take the pawn, we shall take with our knight. And whatever happens, okay, it depends on what happens, but always just stick to the basics. Bring out your pieces, develop your pieces, castle early. This time we can choose to get our queen out and just get it and just get things pretty safe. Okay, we can choose to castle alongside or even expand on the king side as we prepare to strike. So this is a beautiful setup here. What if they've just refused our pawn, sorry, to get into the center? This time we can't push. I remember many bullet games I try out, and removing the pawn to d5 to d4, since most systems accept d4. This is the only time where you cannot push d4 in the center. Of course, we have 3 pieces attacking the center, so it doesn't work against only the knight and the queen. So that won't work. So this time, just feel free to jump with your knight on the sides, open up for your bishop, and that's the way to go. So they always play d6, just to make sure everything is safe. Put your bishop in the right spot. Please notice that they have just weakened these squares, so it's okay for you to have this system. Whenever they play the knight, open up for your pieces, and you have a pretty decent game. Be ready to strike with such moves, and you're pretty having fun in such systems. And the game can continue with such moves with nothing to worry about. Okay, so these are to d4. So let's see another line here, which is knight to d4, and it's a pretty beautiful line. What if they play the knight to d4? As always, our knight g to e2. Yes. Now this time they refuse us to also break the center with a move d4. Take the knight and step back. Of course, they are planning to reinforce the center, but don't worry about such. And whatever they do, you can always fight for the center with your knight, with your pawn to f4. So take the pawn, and this is a pretty nice system. Okay, you should be winning at this point. Of course, you're gonna break and take up that bishop. Remember, take this knight. Okay, so that's a beautiful system out there. So that's what happens when you play. There are many other variations. Please, I've put down the full playlist in the description below. For those who want the pigeons, please write to me at comradeschess@gmail.com, and you can get the pigeons. I encourage you guys who need the pigeons to also support the channel on our PayPal account, Comrades Chess, and we shall be able to reach out to you with more variations of this line. S6 is another common variation which we shall look at here. Let's look at this variation S6, which can arise in this position. So we always take that. So the key move which they always play also, which is S6, but whatever happens is just take up that center and everything is good to go. Please feel free, don't fear the move E5. You can always just jump around with your knights wherever you want to go, and feel free to. So take the pawn, and you can always continue with the development here, and everything is pretty fine at this point. Knight to c3, which is the common standard move here, and whatever happens, let's go with that. Knight g to e2. Please stick to the common line, but if we see this queen kind of misplaced or kind of coming up early, let's feel free to attack that queen. It always has some good chances in blitz games and bullet games. You can maybe take that queen, since they may not suspect that you may give it a quick attack. We need to get our bishop out so we can choose to fianchetto it. Feel free to step back. Your knight always has some good squares here in the center. Please don't forget to break the center when you can, and everything is pretty fine. Please note they want to take our knight, and let's take theirs first. Let's get our bishop out. You can choose to fianchetto it or the other side, and this game will continue pretty safe, and this is a pretty decent game at this point. Enjoy the Sicilian, the most solid Sicilian being crushed. Thank you. See you next time.